Hello and welcome to another Chobham Careers Performing Arts session. Today we are speaking to an incredible director, somebody who I've worked with personally and has agreed to come on and just talk to us honestly and openly about her journey to where she is today. I'd like to introduce you. In fact, I'm going to let her introduce herself. And first of all, who are you and what do you do?
So my name's Sarah Gavron and I'm a director of films. I have directed a little bit of television and some documentaries, but mainly I've worked on fiction films. And the ones you might have heard of are Brick Lane, which was based on Monica Ali's book of the same name, which was the story of a woman living in East London in an arranged marriage from the Bangladeshi community. And then I followed that up with Suffragette, which was the story of the women who fought for the vote, and most recently Rocks, which was made in a creative collaboration with a team of writers, Teresa Okoko and Claire Wilson, and a young cast who were drawn from schools like yours around East London, and in fact some of them from your very school. And Josh, Mr Avory, your teacher, appeared in the film playing a teacher.
Perfect, thank you so much. So Sarah, yeah, I'll go straight into the questions. Tell us about your journey to where you are, to get you to where you are today, and what you're currently up to now.
Well, when I was at school, I didn't really have any role models in film, and I didn't know it was a career that you could pursue, not as a director anyway. I was very interested in drama at school. I loved it, and English and art and photography, and music. So all those things led me eventually to realise that film brought them all together in a kind of synthesis, and that's what I wanted to pursue. But it took me until my very late teens and early 20s when I started seeing films directed by women and films about life in Britain that I realised that that was the path I wanted to take. And my routine was to make short films with friends on weekends between work, other jobs, and also then eventually to apply with those short films to film school. And I went to a film school called the National Film and Television School. I didn't go till I was in my mid to late 20s, and I went there and did 3 years of studying fiction direction. And then after that, I went out with these short films, and some of them won prizes, and on the back of that I was able to get jobs directing longer form films.
Oh, lovely! That sounds really good. And then, obviously, what are you? We're in a certain pandemic. I don't know if you've heard of it. And what are you sort of up to at the moment? What are you up to now? What's your next project?
Well, it's been a bizarre period of time because, of course, we were about to release Rocks just at the beginning of lockdown. And so during lockdown, the whole creative team of Rocks and the cast themselves stayed in contact over Zoom. We did a film club and talked about films during that period. But we had to wait to release the film. And then when things opened up a bit in September, we then went into cinemas, which was very exciting, but took a lot of energy. So all of us had to do a lot of press. So you might see one interview about it, but behind the scenes, we've done kind of hundreds and Zoom things to get the word out. And then also the film now is on Netflix. So that's eaten up a lot of my time. I've also got 2 kids, and one's a teenage girl who's 16 and a 12-year-old boy, and they've been at home a lot. So I've been doing a bit of homeschooling, and I've done kind of other things, developing new ideas and projects going forward. There's a development phase as a director often where you're reading scripts that are out there, where you're reading novels, you're thinking about new ideas, what might work for a future project. So I'm at that stage.
Ah, sounds really exciting. So what would you say, Sarah, is the favourite thing about your job and why?
I'd say it's collaboration. It's the thing of working with people. I love working with actors. On Rocks, we worked with people who hadn't acted before. By the end of the process, they were definitely professional, and they were all young people. They were anything between 13 and 18, most of them. And then there were some adults. But the thing about film is what you do is you bring together lots of people from different disciplines. So you'll have a production designer, you'll have a composer, a cinematographer, an editor, a writer, a producer, a director, and you've all got different skills. And between you, you apply them to a scene and it becomes something that none of you could have ever imagined. And when that works, it's fantastic. And it really exceeds your expectations. Of course, when it doesn't work, it's the worst thing in the world. So it's a combination of the best thing in the world and the worst thing in the world, depending on how it goes. There's lots of pressure on it to kind of work. But what I most enjoy is when everything comes together, when the actors are doing their best work, when the designers come up with a great idea, the writer, the producers are all inputting, and suddenly you see something that just does exceed your imagination, and it's just so exciting.
That's lovely. And I just want to ask, or just kind of develop on from that. And when I was on set for Rocks, it just struck me as an incredible place to be immediately. And I've never been in an environment like it before. And I remember phoning my mum straight after and being like, Mum, like everybody on set nearly are female. And is that not a purposeful decision by you, but it obviously, and not in a naive way, but maybe it is. I didn't know too much about you as a director apart from those films. I didn't know sort of your opinions, your views, your passion, the way you are. And it's just something that really struck me. And I remember phoning my mum and being like, Mum, this is like incredible. I'd never experienced it before. And it was actually breathtaking for me to see it. And I just wanted to sort of ask you that personally, and I think it's really important other people sort of like know where your viewpoints are in it.
Yeah, so I've made a few films, and it's very, very unusual to have lots of women on set behind the camera, and in front of the camera too, actually. So we made on Rocks a very conscious decision to work with women in the heads of department roles. So we were making a film about teenage girls, and we wanted the people behind the camera are kind of storytellers as well. And so we wanted it all to link up and feel like we were all one family, and everybody could feed back and people could feed in their own experiences. So we not only recruited a lot of women, we did have some great men as well, but we recruited a lot of women, but we also recruited a lot of younger women, and women where we could, from different backgrounds that reflected the backgrounds of the girls themselves. And lots of women from London and East London where we were shooting. So that created this kind of sense on the set that everybody was telling the same story, and it was exciting. But normally on a set you'd have probably 10% of the crew would be women, and here it was sort of 75, 80, 90%.
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was a real wow moment for me. It was incredible. So thank you for letting me experience that. It was great. Which then kind of now leads on to the next question. And I've really enjoyed planning this question, and I just want to ask, so can you tell us about a wow moment in your career where you've either thought, like, I absolutely love my job, this is it, or what on earth am I doing with my life? If there's something that where you go, wow, what was the first thing that comes into your mind?
Well, because Rocks is in my head, there was a great moment on set where we were filming. I mean, it was a funny moment, and often a joyous moment and a great release that was much needed in the 6 hard weeks of shooting, was when we staged a school food fight. And I knew it
was going to be this part. I knew it.
And all the girls mention it, and it's just the fact that they took so much pleasure in it. And, and Bookie, who plays Rocks, really let loose. And even though it was kind of subversive and they were being a bit naughty, and I was trying to control it all more than I could, because we wanted the batter not to get on their hair and costume so that we could do future takes. But there it was, going everywhere. And there was something very joyous about capturing that on camera, and the girls really being allowed to express themselves very freely in that moment. But I've had other wow moments. Another one was shooting Suffragette. We were the first film crew, luckily, due to the brilliant location manager, to get access to the Houses of Parliament. And when they put in the request of what do you want, we said we want to bring in horses and carts and stage a riot in the central courtyard to depict a scene that would have happened in 1912 when there was a protest in the House of Parliament where the police really turned on the suffragettes. under the Prime Minister Asquith, and we recreated that moment there, and that there was something about being in the very place that had barred women for so many decades, centuries, and being there recreating that moment that felt really, really exciting, and you couldn't have done it anywhere else in a way. And you know, and then yes, as you say, there have been lots of lows. I'd say the lows are when, you know, you've really, really worked hard and you've thought about something for years and years, a scene, and then for whatever reason it doesn't come together, or, you know, weather is bad, or the actors are, you know, usually it's not to do with the actors, to be honest, it's usually to do with sort of logistical things that make the scene not happen. And that can be very, very disappointing. But I think you have to learn to ride the ups and downs and know that, you know, another day will be better and something else will happen that makes it all good.
Oh, that's great. I had goosebumps when you were talking. I was just visualizing, like, in the Houses of Parliament, you talking about it and seeing it, and just, yeah, I had goosebumps when you said that. It was like, yeah, it's really passionate. So you personally, Sarah, like, what hurdles did you face? You know, whether that was growing up, whether that was in the industry, what struggles or hurdles did you face, if any, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, going into the film industry is difficult, whoever you are. I mean, it's, you know, it's famously difficult to access, and that's got to be changed. At the moment, people are addressing the fact that there's so few people from diverse ethnic backgrounds in the film industry, and from different socioeconomic backgrounds as well. And, you know, that needs to be addressed. But there are also very few women. And when I came in to industry in the year 2000, which is now 20 years ago, there were way fewer women. And it was very, very unusual to say you wanted to be a director. And so I had to sort of battle that every day. And I felt like I had this kind of idea that I was putting on my armour and I was playing a role, and I was just going to go out there and believe that I could do it, even if I didn't inside always feel I could. And the trick that I kind of taught myself was just, even if people said no or things looked like they were going wrong, I just committed to something. So I said, okay, I'm making this film, come what may, and they're gonna say no, but then I'm gonna take it to someone else, or I'm gonna try other partners, or I'm gonna try another version of the script, and just keeping going. But it's been hard, and when things are well received, it's fantastic, and when things go well, it's great, and when things aren't, it's really, really, really difficult, because you put so much work into it. But, you know, you just have to learn to go with that, because that's part of the territory of doing anything creative, I think, that you're putting yourself on the line. And film's particularly pressurizing because there's money involved and lots of people involved, and time becomes a real pressure. But that's also what makes it exciting.
Lovely, thank you very much. I don't know whether you touched on it there, it might be something very different. What would you say is the standout or the best lesson you've learned in life? You know, who did it come from, where did it come from, and how did it impact you?
Well, definitely my mantra is don't take no for an answer, and keep going, and sort of don't give up. I'm not quite sure who imparted that to me. I mean, I did have this mum who moved into the political arena and kind of kept going and worked very hard, actually, did her homework, and I saw her battle through a kind of very male political and quite difficult world. And maybe that made me kind of confident that you should keep going. But yeah, that's my biggest sort of lesson in life, is just to not give up.
And again, what do you think are the most common reasons for people failing or giving up in your profession? I think that's actually probably two separate questions, like failing, but then also giving up.
Yeah, I think you have to be quite resilient, because you will get a lot of knockbacks, you know, and I think you have to just, someone said to me, oh yeah, one of my directing colleagues said to me once, you know, that if you see directing, your job is to solve problems. You're less intimidated by the fact that you're presented with something really problematic every day. And you just think, oh yeah, here's another problem. My job is to solve it. Something's gone wrong. That's my job, to find a way around it. Because it can be a bit overwhelming when things, you know, go wrong. So I think that it's about sort of finding your way through that. And then, yeah, what was the question here?
So people failing, or then giving up.
Why people don't carry on? Yeah, I think there are lots of reasons people don't carry on, and one of the reasons might be that it's financially quite a juggle. especially if you're in the, anything in creative industries can be financially precarious. So you have to find a way to keep yourself financially stable. And some people do that through having jobs on the side. I know a lot of writers who have only committed to full-time writing once they're really, really established, and along the way have done lots and lots of other part-time jobs to keep themselves going, and written in evenings and weekends. So, that's one way to do it. And definitely when I was making short films, I was doing daytime jobs in other fields just to keep myself going, and then doing the directing of short films on the side or in holidays. So you have to be prepared for that juggle, and that it does make life sometimes more complicated. But if you're really passionate about it, it's worth pursuing and keeping going. And then not to take criticism as a message that you should stop doing it. To realise that it's part of the train, and that you've got to learn from the criticism and learn from the feedback, and actually that failure is the best way to learn. And it so is the case. I mean, even now, all my short films, and I made 9 films, are the places where I learned things, because I allowed myself to fail. And every time I'm directing, I remember those lessons. And when you do something well, you just don't remember why you did it well, but when you fail, you never forget.
Yeah, I think that's applicable to any walk of life. Yeah, when you fail, you never forget, all right, I failed at this once. But it's also that determination and motivation from then of, I can't let this happen again. I can't fail at the same thing. I need to rectify and go on with that. All right, so these next few questions I think are sort of a little bit more personal, but in more of a comedic way. Maybe it's not necessarily about the industry or anything. It's about getting to know Sarah Gavron a little bit on a different level. So, if you were stuck on a desert island, what luxury item would you take with you, and why?
Well, I love doodling and drawing, and I would have to take pen and paper, because that's the way I could get really involved, and hours can go by if I'm drawing. So I'd do that.
Drawing, and then also I guess you can double that up and write some scripts.
Right, yeah. Right. As long as you had lots of pens and lots of paper. Yeah.
This is it. If you could have dinner with anybody, dead, alive, who would it be and why?
It's such a hard question. I thought about this a lot, because there are lots of people I'd love to have dinner with. My God, so many, amazing, inspiring people who are alive. But then I thought, because you can find out so much about people on Google and watching their interviews, I'm not going to choose anyone who's alive. Because, I could say Michelle Obama, but actually I've just watched her documentary Becoming, so I feel like I know quite a lot about her and what she might say at dinner. So instead, I'm going to go back in time and choose someone who we haven't got access to anymore, and who didn't tell us her personal account of her life. So Cleopatra. So, she had such an eventful life. I mean, she began off, in a dynasty in Egypt, and then she became a queen, and she had a relationship with Caesar, and then she had a relationship with Mark Antony, and she had kids, and then she went to Rome, and she fought battles, and then she and her husband both committed suicide at the end, and as Egypt became a province of Rome. And you kind of just wonder what that life was like. And it was such a short life, because it was from all that happened from the age of 14, when she first became in power, I think, I hope I'm right about this, to about 30. So it's a short life, and I'd love to know all the details of that. Like, what were those battles like? What was the Roman Empire like? What was it like in ancient Egypt? What was it like being married to those extraordinarily powerful men? What was the power balance? Was she the top dog? Who was in power in those days? I'd love to hear it from her mouth.
That's really, really interesting. It's also made me think, actually, who would I have dinner with?
Who would you?
I'm now going, who would it be? Who would it be? It sounds really, really strange. I think it would be with my birth father, who I don't actually know. And it would be those questions, because I don't actually know a lot about him. And it would be, let's find out about this guy. Let's find out about who he is.
Well, obviously, if you've got someone who's so connected to who you are and you don't know about them, that's fascinating.
Yeah, because like I said, it wasn't until you could just go on the internet and find out what you need about all these people. But yeah, that's kind of something I didn't necessarily know. Okay, what's something you're not very good at?
Well, I'm actually, as my children would tell you, not very good at quite a lot of things. So I'm really not very good at cooking. I'm really messy, I'm really disorganized, and I'm really unpractical. So, you know, if you have to put, yesterday I had to put together a shelf unit, and oh my, it was such a challenge. And I'm learning to try and make more interesting meals because my children are demanding more interesting meals. Uh, you can see where the power balance is in my house. But I wish I was more practical and was able to kind of do everyday logistical things, because on a desert island I worry that, you know, I wouldn't be able to kind of build my shelter.
Yeah.
So, but the good thing about directing, which is a kind of cheat, is that you are actually the Jill of all trades instead of the Jack of all trades. I'm the Jill of all trades and the master of none. So you have to kind of have a sense of everything, but not actually know how to do any one of them. So you work with an editor and you don't have to know how to actually technically edit or how to operate the camera. You just have to understand what all these geniuses around you are doing and kind of marshal that energy and you know, feed off their incredible talent, really, is what you're doing.
Yeah, that's really, when you were talking about DIY, I come from a family of builders. So my dad is a carpenter by trade, but he's a builder. Both of my other brothers went into the family business, and I was there going, Dad, I want to go to uni and study drama. And he's like, so I'm useless on a desert island as well.
You didn't use everybody or anybody you met, you know, you just have to kind of put on a play.
Okay, last question. If you could turn back time and talk to a 15-year-old Sarah Gavron, what would you tell yourself and why?
So that's a really good question, actually. I mean, I think that, you know, what's one of the good things about getting older is you realize that it's good to be yourself, and that you don't necessarily have to try to emulate everybody around you and fit in, and that as an adult sometimes you're appreciated for who you are and the ways you're different and unique. And especially if you're going into the creative industries, I think one of the things they taught us at film school was, you know, yes, watch other art as much as you can, watch theatre, watch films, but you don't, and imitate it as a way of learning, but ultimately follow your own gut instincts. You know, do your homework, know your stuff, but then come back to your kind of own emotions and your own belief and own views and what feels true and right to you. And actually, when I'm directing, I'm always kind of double checking, does this feel right to me? Does this feel right to me? Or am I just liking this because I think I should like it, you know? So that's the kind of thing I'd tell my 15-year-old self, is follow your instincts wherever possible. What else would I tell myself? I'd tell myself, follow your passions as well. And you know, it's good to work hard, but it's also good to enjoy yourself, and it's good to pursue your dreams. I mean, you have to be a bit pragmatic and practical, and obviously not do crazy dreams, but you know, you've got to keep yourself alive and look after people around you. But it's good to follow your passions, because you know, you live once and you want to do what you want to do.
Sarah, that's great. Thank you so much for your time today. Be sure to go onto Netflix, anybody who's watching this, and make sure you check out Rocks. It's an incredible film. It's passionate, it's raw, it's honest, and it's representative of who we are today. It's available on Netflix. It's called Rocks, directed by Sarah Gavron. Sarah, thank you so much for giving up your time today, and it's been great chatting to you.
Thank you.